Hello everyone, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly. I am your host of these amazing podcasts. It's not too self-aggrandizing. We genuinely think that we hope that we put forward a great product that everyone loves to watch and listen. So if you've been with us for a wee while, thank you very much for continuing to support us. And if you're new here, you have picked a banger of an episode to join us on. I'm going to flick to my camera. Why do I say it's a banger? Well, this guest that we have on was just flying in and out of Northland. Comic book illustrator. Illustrator of stuff that I can't really talk about. I can. He illustrates for Disney. He's done stuff with WWE. And he's collaborated with Marvel. Michel Mulipola. Amazing gentleman. So cool. And, he lives in Auckland. He was coming into the area. And he was doing a book tour. Touring with other artists, because he does a lot of comics and things like that. And he was gracious enough to give us a couple of hours of his time. And he came in, sat down in the chair, and we got to have an absolutely wicked conversation. As an international artist and a current international artist as well. He drops some really amazing nuggets of information just scattered throughout the podcast as well. What was also cool is one of our former guests, Shane Evans, was actually got a chance to sit in the studio and listen to Michel talk as well. Just so cool. It was such a cool podcast. So I tell you what, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you guys enjoy it. Let's sit down and have a conversation with Michel Mulipola. Yeah.
The clap is a sexual transmitted disease, but I'm not going to judge you. You're from Whangarei. What you do with your cousins, your own personal thing. So, yeah, no judgment.
Hello, everyone. My name's Mark Kelly. I'd like to welcome our very special, distinguished guest, Michel Mulipola, to the Northland Artists Conversation. Thank you so much. We're going to keep that first part in, eh? It's not. We're not cutting that out. That's just going to stay in there. I would like to point out, though, that this is Whangarei, not Hamilton. I think
that's chlamydia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in and making time for us, because you're really on a bit of a dash through Northland at the moment. I really appreciate you actually finding some time out of your evening, your relaxation time to come and sit down with us. It's really cool.
No, no problem. There's not much to do at night in Whangarei. So, I was happy to come in and chat to you guys and, see how it goes. and watch Spider-Man. Yeah. It's funny too. I went down to, I can't remember what the intersection is, and I took a photo of the piggery.
Yes.
Very famous, and then also the bookstore. But, yeah. It's always great to be back in Whangarei.
Yes, Whangarei welcomes you with open arms and invites you back for more insults next time.
But yeah, so that's. I'm sorry, guys. I'm Samoan. Our love language is roasting. So
good.
Yeah. So it's Samoan Language Week at the moment. At the time of this recording. So mani wia le vaeaso o le nganga nā Samoa. So happy Samoan Language Week. I'm gonna be roasting anything and everything.
Cool. So as the roast master general Jeff Ross himself also says, you only roast the ones you love. So it's good to know that you love Northland. And the police. So, as with all of the podcasts that we do, we always like to go right back, and we consider it to be very much an origin story for comic book references, and I love the film Unbreakable.
I don't, but
that's a shame. Bruce Willis. I don't know if he remembers doing that film, though. Anyway, you're a very... Now, I say this with all the most sincerest way I can. You're a very well-established artist because you have worked for some very well-known and high-profile companies. We'll get to that a bit later on, because how you get there, I think, is really interesting. But if we go right back, is sort of drawing and art and illustrating, has that always been in your blood, or was it something else that you first discovered creatively that kind of led you to move forward?
That's always been a part of my life, ever since I can remember. And, I often tell kids, when I'm doing the school tours, like I'm currently doing in Northland, about how everybody draws. Like, everybody draws. Yep. It's a natural instinct, like when you're like a toddler.
Yep.
When you're a little kid, everybody draws. I just didn't grow out of it. I didn't stop. And that's because I discovered my uncle's comics when I was about 3 or 4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And like it just blew my mind just looking at this thing and be like, what is this? And that's when I got hooked. And I wanted to do that. I was like, I want to draw comics.
Wow. Who were the early comics that you sort of discovered?
So I can't remember what the first one was, but I do remember like X-Men.
Classic.
Some of the John Byrne, Art Adams stuff. Some John Romita Jr. I remember 2000 ADs. That's for sure.
Oh yes.
Yep, ABC Warriors and that.
Yeah.
And,
Judge Dredd.
Yep. Strontium Dog, Rogue Trooper. And the other one that was popular from when I was a kid was Rom the Space Knight. So those were the ones I remember distinctly as a kid. But just comics is really fired, up my creativity and inspiration. It's like, whoa, this is the coolest thing. This is what I want to do. And so just drawing comics as a job, or just in general, just drawing comics was... weirdly enough, an anchoring point while I was growing up.
Okay.
So that's all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
Throughout school, what do you want to be? I want to draw comics. And they're like, that's not a thing. And that's not a job.
Now, where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up?
Yeah.
I'm a proud, staunch Māngere boy from South Auckland.
Manger.
Yeah, 275 for life, man.
Yeah.
Southside. And I'm still there. And that was a cool thing with the work I've done. I got to do it all from Māngere.
Wow.
From South Auckland.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. That's where I still reside. And I represent it hard everywhere I go. And the Māngere South Auckland community is what has a big part of who I am.
As a kid with such a very clear and defined goal, essentially you're like a train that's just steamrolling ahead, and you're laying the tracks out because you know where the destination is. Your destination is, I'm going to draw comics.
Yeah.
How was school life for you in general then? Because I think, let's be honest, I think the 80s were a time where it wasn't like, oh, comic book artist, you can be whatever you want to be. It's like, no, you'll be an accountant or a lawyer or something along those lines. How was schooling for you?
Well, I coasted. I was able to pass school subjects without a study. I have a pretty good memory too, so but a lot of times I was just mucking around. It wasn't necessarily disruptive,
okay,
but I was a bit of a class clown. Always making jokes, always being silly, but never disruptive or aggressive or anything. I was like that, tolerated. Like, he's a funny dude, but he's good. But like in high school in particular, my art teacher didn't really understand what it is I wanted to do.
Oh wow.
They kind of knew of comics, but they didn't know how to kind of like guide me in that way, because they didn't understand it. And
did they sort of did they see the creativity and then try and guide you down different paths?
No, because I was pretty stubborn.
Okay.
I'm Samoan, of course I was, but
oh, you said it.
Yeah. So they kind of knew this was something I wanted to do. Again, it's the anchoring point. Like, this is what I want to do. How do I get there? I don't know, but that's what I want to do. And so they kind of knew whatever they were trying to teach me, whether it was painting or whatever. I hated painting. They could tell I was trying to skew it into what I wanted to do.
Right, okay.
And so, again, that's kind of how I kind of rebelled in art class. And funny enough, in my last year of high school, I failed that because...
What?
Yeah, I failed that because... you do the portfolio, gimmick, and I remember doing one board for my art design class, and I went, why the fuck am I doing this?
Okay.
Like, if my teacher doesn't understand what it is I'm doing, why would I send it down to Wellington for people who know nothing about me, nothing about what I'm trying to do, to judge?
Yeah,
right?
They're not going to understand it.
Yeah. So I went, fuck it, I'm going to muck around for the rest of the year. So I did one board, and that's all I sent down. I mucked around for the rest of the year, being silly, commandeering the class radio, and just being an idiot, being rebellious. And I failed because I got 25%. I got full marks for my one board.
Oh, do you have to do 4 boards?
Yeah, there's 4 boards, and I did one because I just couldn't be bothered doing the rest, and so I ended up getting 25%. So I got full marks for my one board. I probably would have passed if I did all 4, but I didn't care because what I wanted to learn isn't being taught. Yeah, so funny enough, my art teacher in my last year was a different art teacher than I had previously.
Yeah,
but the previous art teacher I had, she was a lot more understanding of, like, I guess, my stubbornness and what I was trying to accomplish. And she currently works still as an art teacher, but for Te Kura, what used to be the correspondence school.
Okay, yeah. I know the
so
one.
she works with them, and I've actually done a couple of online events with the Te Kura, and I did one last week, and she was in there, and she was like, "It's amazing to see what you've been doing." She remembered me because I guess I was the talented guy who needs to concentrate and
get some focus.
Get some focus and stuff. But I think I made an impression where she was just like, it's really great to see your passion, how you're your focus and stuff, and of what you're trying to do in order to success. So it's funny in that respect where I wasn't necessarily the cool kid.
I can relate to that.
Especially like all the stuff I did, all the stuff I love, that's not necessarily the cool kid thing. But I was different. Yeah, that's for sure. I stood out in that way in terms of like, that dude's weird. But I, even primary school and stuff, not being the cool kid, the kid that's always reading, the kid that's always drawing. While all the cool kids were playing kiss and catch, which, when you think about it now, is a pretty dubious childhood game, and I'm so glad I never played that because
I won't comment on that one.
Yeah, because I was just like, I'm so glad I never played that game. I was looking back at it, but I wasn't cool enough to play that game. So like all of that stuff, I was just like, you know what? Regardless of being an outsider, I never let anyone talk me out of it. Even then, as a kid, I just kind of knew I loved this stuff. Yeah. And I didn't care if other people didn't understand it or like it. I was like, I love this stuff. That's it. So,
where do you... Okay, so we've interviewed close to 60 guests. And, some of them are like, well, I was always creative and then I kind of floated in and out. You have some that go, I didn't really discover my creativity until later on in life. Where do you think your single-minded focus and drive came from? Was it your parents or just any friends, family, anything?
I don't know. I don't know where that particular drive and focus came from.
Because that's laser focused.
Well, it's funny because it's not necessarily laser focused because I just wanted to draw comics. Yeah. Right. So it wasn't like I want to draw comics for DC. I want to draw comics for Marvel. That is wrapped up in drawing comics.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
But I'm happy making comics.
Yeah.
Like, in general. And having it open like that enough allowed me to do all the other stuff I've done that wasn't comics, because I was like, you know what? Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
Let's see, like, for me, being around for so long, you know, I love challenging myself, pushing the boundaries of what I can accomplish. And so, yeah, so just kind of having something that's a little bit broader, like, I just want to draw comics, rather than I want to draw comics for a particular company, you know, because a lot of people, if they kind of really, you know, kind of narrow what they want to accomplish, it becomes like a really, you need pinpoint, like everything you do has to be with pinpoint accuracy. But I've got like a little wider target, and it's like, that's comics, but tangentially I could do animation or video games. Like, you know, so it allows a bit of room to breathe and go down different avenues that you wouldn't have thought you would have gone down, you know, if you had kind of just that real thing. So in terms of the target, you know, the journey and destination, it was a little bit more broader. In terms of the focus of like just doing that, I have no idea. I think, again, it was just, I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I loved it so much, I had to do it. I had to give it a go.
Yeah.
And see if I can do it. And because there is no, you know, predetermined pathway to like success in the industry and field, I had to make it up as I went along.
Okay. So you finish high school after having failed your last year. Where do you kind of go from that point onwards? Because where are we now? Are we in the 90s or the 2000s?
Yeah, end of 90s. And I spent, actually, after high school, I spent a couple of years actually looking after my grandparents.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And I also spent a couple of years working at Burger King.
Man, McDonald's.
Yeah.
So,
but you know, I still drew, not as much as I did in high school, but everything kind of, you know, came about when I started going to the comic book store again. And then again, it was just the inspiration hit as soon as I got back into comics. And yeah, even though I had been drawing a little bit before I started going back to the comic book store, once I started going back to comic book store, like the creative floodgates just opened up.
Yeah, nice.
And then next thing I know, I'm just like, yeah, I'm doing all of this stuff, and it very much, was kind of took me to where I am now. It was just, but it's been crazy. You know, working at the comic book store as well. You know,
right.
So,
yeah. As someone who, you know, because I mean, New Zealand's not exactly known for its massively large comic scenes. I think especially back then as well, comic book stores dotted around certainly. But as someone who wanted to get into the industry, and you know, the boy from Mangere, how do you figure that out? How do you navigate that journey? How do you break in?
Well, a lot of it comes down to Jeremy, who was working at Gotham Comics in Nunihonga at the time. And you know, once I started going back to the comic store at Gotham Comics, you know, I started drawing again, and then I would come in and be like, "Oh, hey, dude, you know, here's some artwork that I kind of did," and he was like, "Oh man, that's so good." And I think around the same time, a few other customers had been showing Jeremy their artwork.
Oh wow!
And so he was like, "You know what? Why don't I get an anthology together and
stop it? That's awesome."
Yeah, and kind of take away the burden of print costs and stuff.
Yep.
And so Jeremy is the one that kind of put Dealerman Comics together, DMC, and gave us, you know, our first published work, really. And a whole bunch of us. There were so many awesome artists in there, and I'm not too sure who's still doing work.
I was just about to say, out of those artists and then initial DMC, how many are still continuing, and how many have kind of dropped by the wayside a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, because I lost contact with a lot of them, and don't really know what they're doing at the moment, except for one. My friend Wayton, he's an artist in Sydney,
Yeah.
And so he works in that and stuff. But there was a whole bunch of talented people, and I just don't know, if they continued in creative paths, most likely not comics, because comics aren't cool or well paying. So
they must pay okay. You're still doing it.
Well, yeah, that's because I love it. That's my chosen medium of storytelling, comics. But I get paid better doing other stuff, like with the story, with the school tours and that. Like, I essentially get paid more per hour to talk about comics than making comics.
Wow. Okay.
So comics are very much a passion thing. The pay for it is pretty rubbish. But now with like my Disney work and stuff, I can set my rates now and be like, nah, this is how much it's gonna cost now. So it's that kind of thing. Comics are very much a thing you do for love.
Yeah.
It's not very often that you get paid really well for it, unless it's like a big company. But even then, the big companies don't pay as much as they should.
And I think that sort of is very representative of the creative industry as a whole. It's very much, we're going to starve for 90% of your time. But if you hit that last 10%, there's your money. But it's getting to that a lot of people, they do the hard slog for years, and then it's just like, well, I'm kind of over it now. And then it's like, well, if only you'd stayed another couple of years. Well, shit.
Yeah.
So DMC, how do you, when you that first anthology sort of comes together?
Early 20s. Early 20s. That's when I kind of had my first published work.
You're working at the comic book store, or you're still at Burger King at this point?
No. I finished at Burger King.
Okay.
And had I started working at the comic book store? I did start working at the comic book store, but I think after I started visiting regularly. It got to a point where I was a regular and got on well with Jeremy, and then he was like, hey, we need someone to kind of work on a Sunday. You keen to do it? I'm like, yeah, man. And then we've kind of been working together ever since. So after Gotham Comics folded, him and I, started up Arkham City Comics.
Oh, wow.
And that's because, again, my creativity works in different ways, in all manner of ways. And, I remember when we were coming to the end of our time at Gotham, and we were thinking about doing a comic store ourselves, because a lot of the customers were like, wherever you guys go, we will follow.
Yeah, that's cool. And
so we're like, we feel stink leaving people in the lurch.
Yeah.
And so that's when Arkham City Comics was born. But Arkham City Comics was born because A, I was playing the games. Arkham City, Arkham Asylum. And
yep.
And then B, it sounded kind of like Auckland City.
Yes.
And C, all the rejects from Gotham end up in Arkham. So that's what me and Jeremy felt like. We felt like the rejects, because we're essentially getting booted from Gotham. And so we're like, okay, all the rejects from Gotham end up in Arkham. We might as well, go with Arkham.
And is that also so you have a local comic book store that you can continue to
that too, but
of?
Over the years, obviously, thanks to a never increasingly successful art career, I only help out on like the odd Sunday,
right,
when I'm in town.
Yeah.
Just to give Jeremy at least a day off. But Jeremy and I, we've known each other for a long time, and we've worked with each other for a long time, and he's the workhorse of the comic store.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But I still help him out, because that's what mates do.
Yes, mates always help mates out, 100%. So you DMC, the first anthology comes out, minor success.
Yeah, no,
it's or sort of bigger success than you'd anticipated. Then where do you go from there?
I think it was a lot more successful than people may have thought it could have been.
Okay, yeah.
And it kind of burst out onto the scene because, again, this was an anthology that had a whole bunch of creators that people had never heard of.
Yeah.
And it was kind of new and exciting. And people were like, whoa, where's this come from?
Yeah.
And whatnot. And also the fact that it had the backing of a comic book store and a guy that works behind the counter.
Yep.
That he had the connections to get copies all around the country in the comic book stores that we're all around as well. So
Well, it gives it some legitimacy as well, doesn't it? Because it's not a bunch of guys that have gotten together that have gone, we think our shit's awesome, check us out. It's like this guy who's probably quite well respected in the community has gone, these are my guys.
Yeah.
You know, I want to represent them.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, Jeremy's done so much in terms of, giving us that first kind of shot.
Yeah.
At it, and I've managed to build from that into what I'm doing now, and so I'm forever grateful to Jeremy, for that opportunity.
One of the organisations that proudly supports the Northland Artists Conversation is Creative Northland. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you guys about it. Creative Northland have been absolutely vital in helping this project get off the ground through its infancy and all the way through to where we are now. We couldn't have done what we've done without their assistance. What we suggest is that if you're a creative person and you haven't heard of Creative Northland, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Creative Northland, simply do a Google search. They're the top result. These guys are wonderful. They're all creatives in their own way, and they're all very, very well respected throughout the industry that they work in. They're very hardworking, absolutely committed and dedicated to helping the creative people throughout Northland, whether it be through simple things like starting up a project, all the way through to putting on like an exhibition, for example, all the way through to working out how they can start turning what they do into a business. It's all free advice. They give really, really good guidelines and helpful assistance to make sure that you, as a creative, are able to get the most out of what you do. Creative Northland, highly recommend them. Check them out. So obviously the bond between yourself and Jeremy is incredibly close, and still to this day. I don't know. Is Arkham still going?
Yeah, Arkham still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there like a little Michel shrine in there that's like, we got this guy his start. You can have your start too.
No. But like, Arkham this year actually just celebrated its 10th year in operation.
Oh wow.
But there was a shelf that had my work available for sale.
Just like dedicated.
Yeah, not necessarily dedicated, but like it's my work. There wasn't a shrine. But no, people would come in and be like, "Oh, what are you still working here?" I go, "Yeah," because I thought you were working for Disney. I go, "Yeah, I am, but I don't mind helping out." Like it's So no, there isn't a shrine there.
I can just imagine someone's like 3D printed a little bobblehead of you, and there's like comics on either side. I digress, though. Yeah, real shrine sort of stuff. You've alluded to it a couple of times, Disney, and obviously you're wearing the very cool Disney animation T-shirt. How does I'm going to say it again, the boy from Mangere get to Disney? Because Disney, it's got to be a hell of a story. It's got to be a hell of a story.
It is a story, and like everything else I've done, I've managed to find my own way into that space. I knew a guy at Disney, and a few years ago, we had followed each other on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I met him in person at San Diego Comic-Con, and we were hanging out, and I gifted him one of my books.
Oh, nice.
Just as a friendly gesture, not as a hey, here's my book.
Yeah, I'm repping myself.
Yeah, it's like, hey, if you think it's cool, give me a job or try and hook me up. But so it was just a friendly kind of interaction, and it was really great to meet him in person. And so in 2021, I applied for the position of story artist for the series, for Disney Plus, and I was like,
are we allowed to know what the series is?
No, I can't.
It's not out yet?
No, it's not out yet. It should be out next year on Disney Plus.
So obviously with big companies, NDAs are quite an important thing. Yep. Okay, cool.
So I'm being very
careful with your words.
About how the story goes, because there's a lot of stuff that makes it very particular to a Disney property.
Right.
So So I applied for the job, story artist job, because I saw it pop up on the internet. And I applied for the job knowing full well that I have no experience in the animated industry. And I was just like, I'm a storyteller, I make comics, I'm an artist. And hopefully, story is king for me. So that's all I care about, telling stories. So I applied for that job, and at the same time, in November 2021, the DC Comics had the Milestone Initiative.
Yeah.
And the Milestone Initiative is about, spotlighting black and minority comic creators. And I'm like, that's me. I'm a Samoan comic artist. You Google Samoan comic artist, and it's just me. So I'm a minority comic creator. And so I applied for that as well. But the fun thing about the Milestone Initiative, that it was only open to US and Canadian residents. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do it anyway.
Wow, okay.
So I took the spec script, and I did like the 3-page sample, sent it through, and then in January of 2021, I get an email from DC saying, hey, we just wanted to check, according to your application, it says that you are based in New Zealand.
Yeah.
We want to know if that's the case. And I remember getting the email, and I was like, wait, they wouldn't be asking if they weren't interested.
Yes, very much so.
Like,
yeah.
If my work was rubbish and they saw I was from New Zealand, easy bin.
Yeah.
Like, because pretty much I applied because I wanted to see if my work was good enough, or if they would get some eyes, or maybe get some critiques on my work. So when I got the email, I was like, oh, that sounds like they're interested. So I replied saying, yeah, I'm in New Zealand. And then they replied saying, unfortunately, due to my geographical status, they can't proceed any further with my application. But they do like my work, so maybe they'll keep me on the books.
Should you relocate to America?
Yeah, so I was just like, oh shit, okay, that's cool. That's not a no. Obviously, I've made some kind of impact. So I got that in January, and I hadn't heard back from Disney until June. And I get an email saying, hey, unfortunately, we went with someone else for the story artist position. But again, we do like your work, and if there's something that we think is suitable for you, we may send it your way.
Yep.
I'm like, oh shit! I got an email from Disney. I got an email from DC. I think I need to go to San Diego Comic-Con next month.
Yeah.
So it's a last-minute trip. So everything is expensive.
Yeah, flights are not cheap at that point.
And luckily for me, I had just wrapped up on a documentary film that I did a whole bunch of artwork for, and so they paid me well.
Yep.
So I was able to afford a last-minute US trip to San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And so I emailed DC, I emailed Disney. I was saying, hey, I'm coming over for San Diego Comic-Con. I'll be in California. If you want to meet face-to-face, I'll be happy to come up to LA. And whatnot. And just kind of, in my mind, I'm just networking.
Yeah.
Trying to get face-to-face meetings, because I understand in the digital world, face-to-face interactions mean so much more now. And that's been my experience. So I was like, cool, this is my first trip since pre-COVID. So I'm going to book it. So I'm going to have fun regardless of whether I'm going to get meetings.
Yeah, nice.
So I'm doing Disneyland. I'm doing San Diego Comic-Con. I'm doing Evo in Las Vegas. So I was like, if I don't get meetings, I'm still having a great time. So I get emails back, replies from DC and Disney, and they're very cordial. They're very like, hey, that'd be great. Just let us know when you're in town, and we can try and organize something. So it's very much like non-committal, but very pleasant. So I was like, cool. So I fly over, and nothing's scheduled, nothing's booked, and I'm at Disneyland for the first couple of days. I'm in the States, and as I'm posting from Disneyland, because everyone was like, can you post as many photos as you can so we can live vicariously through you? I'm like, okay, cool, I got you covered. So as I'm posting from Disneyland, I get a message from my mate at Disney. He's like, dude, are you here in LA? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm here for Comic-Con next week. He goes, cool, let me get back to you. I got a couple of people from Disney who want to meet with you.
Awesome.
So I was like, I'm like, sweet. My second day in the States, I have a possible Disney meeting happening.
Sweet business expense.
Yep. And so I was like, yep, the whole thing is a business expense. And so I was like, oh shit, okay, it worked. And like, it looks like it's going to work. And so I hadn't heard back from DC at this point. And then after LA, after a few days in LA, I head down to San Diego for Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard back from DC, so I'm like, you know what? I have a Disney meeting. I don't have to run around Comic-Con showing my portfolio, shopping around. I've accomplished what I wanted to do with a face-to-face meeting. So if DC don't get back to me, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm
But
good.
you haven't lost anything,
No.
right? You got more than what you were hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. On the second day I show up in the
I
States.
know. It's crazy.
So I actually enjoyed Comic-Con as a punter last year. It was the first time.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm usually rushing around, showing artwork, catching up with artists and that. But this time I was like, I don't need to rush around and do that. I'm just going to walk around and enjoy Comic-Con.
Yeah.
For what it is, Comic-Con. And so, after a couple of days, on the Friday evening, I get an email. And it's from DC, and they're like, hey, what's your schedule like tomorrow? We got a couple of editors who want to meet with you. I'm like, sweet.
What?
Yeah, I was like, my schedule's your schedule. Like, just let me know when and where
I'm suddenly available.
Yeah, just let me know when and where you want me to be, and I will be there.
Yeah.
And so I ended up meeting at the one of the hotels with the Batman editor, and he liked my stuff, and he actually recognized that when I showed him my work. He recognized my work from my sample pages from the Milestone Initiative.
Wow.
It was like, hey, yeah, I remember these pages. And I was like, oh shit, it actually made an impact. And so yeah, he liked my work, and I thanked him for his time. And funny enough, that meeting was like over lunch. It was about 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, this is going a lot longer than I expected.
Yeah.
Most times when you're interacting with editors and stuff, showing your work, it's like 10 minutes. Very much.
I'm reviewing your work.
Yeah.
Here's some notes. Thanks, whatever your name is.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, this is different. This is
Wow.
weird. And so he liked my work, and he was like, yeah, man, just send us more of your, when you do more pages, new comic work, send it through to us, and maybe we'll get you on a short story or something. And I was like, oh shit, okay, cool. And so I thanked him, and also the talent relations manager, Tracy, who facilitated this meeting. And she was the one that I had been in contact with beforehand. And then I leave that meeting, and I'm on the high. I'm like, fuck, I got a meeting with the Batman, and he likes my work. And then, like, not long after, she messages me and goes, hey, come by this other hotel. That's where the DC mixer is. Got another editor who wants to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, shit, okay, then cool. So I head over there, and I'm meeting with the all ages editor.
Yeah.
And again, he liked my work and was very appreciative. But that was more of a 10-15 minutes. So
right, okay,
that was kind of the kind of meetings I was expecting.
Yep.
And I was like, cool, thanked him for his time, because he could be in the DC mixer drinking out with his mates.
Yeah.
So he took time out of that to meet me. I was like, thank you for your time, and didn't want to impose. He goes, no, that was all good. So as I'm leaving, the talent relations facilitator manager, Tracy, she was like, how did that meeting go? I went, I think it went good. She goes, did he like your work? I said, yeah, he did. She goes, cool. He's a very harsh critic. If he doesn't like your work, he will tell you.
Yeah.
So if he likes your work, that's a good sign.
Yeah, awesome.
And I was like, oh, awesome, thank you. And then I thanked her for putting that together.
Yeah.
And she told me why she did that. She goes, she was the talent relations manager for the Milestone Initiative.
Oh,
yep.
cool.
And so when I sent her my pages and the email saying, hey, I'm going to be in America and stuff, she goes, I remember your pages. Goes,
wow.
I remember your pages because they were flagged. They were flagged by the Cubit School, who were judging the artists' submissions.
The Cubit School?
Yep, the Cubit School, Joe Cubit and his sons, Andy and Adam Cubit, very, very much the top kind of comic creating school in the world. So they were judging, and they flagged my work.
Wow.
Because they flagged your work because they wanted DC to make an exception for you and bring you from New Zealand to America for the Milestone Initiative. But she said DC Comics didn't have the travel budget. And so they couldn't do that. And so she said, we couldn't make something happen for you then. She wanted to make sure she could make something happen for me now while I was
amazing,
in town.
yeah.
So, even being in a space I wasn't supposed to be, allowed me the opportunity to meet with some really big editors. And so Comic-Con finishes on a Sunday.
Yep.
And 5 p.m. Sunday, and I get an email saying, hey, meeting on Tuesday in LA, in Burbank with Disney.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
forgotten about Disney at this point. Yeah.
So I'm just like, cool, sweet. I'm on the 4 a.m. Monday train back up to LA.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, if it's the meeting's on Tuesday, go up on Monday, chill, catch up with some friends, and go into that meeting without rushing.
Yeah.
So go up 4 a.m. Monday train, rock up to the meeting on Tuesday, and there's my mate with a couple other Disney people, and we sit down, and we're at a Cuban restaurant, and they're like, "So, do you know what this meeting's about?" And I'm like, "No, not particularly."
Yeah.
I thought we were just hanging out, and then they're like, "Well, we've been wanting to work with you since the beginning of this project," and I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, but Disney don't make a habit of hiring people without experience." I'm like, fair enough. I have zero animation experience. So, fair enough. And they said that when they saw that I had applied, because obviously Disney has a lot of departments.
Yeah.
And when my mate saw that I had applied for it and got rejected, kindly rejected, and I posted on socials, he was like, "God damn it. If they had told them that I had applied through the website, they could have snuck me in that way because I applied through the proper channels."
Oh, no,
so they were annoyed
man.
at that. They were annoyed at that.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, "Oh, okay, cool." And so they were like, "So, how would you like to work with us?" I'm like, wait. I was like, I had my iPad. I'm like, "You don't want to see my artwork?" And they're like, "Nah, we are more than familiar with your work."
Just a straight job offer.
The book I gave my mate a few years ago, they were like, "That book has been in the writer's room since day one as inspiration for the series."
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, "Oh." And so they were like, "Yeah, we reckon maybe, 5 weeks, and they were like, "You don't have to be in LA. We reckon you can do it from New Zealand." So I was like, "That's good because LA is a shithole." And so they pretty much had me in on a 5-week kind of trial basis, which is fine.
Yeah.
And they were really cool because they were like, "Who knows? This 5 weeks that you work on the stuff, you may find you don't even like it." And I was like, "Cool, yeah, that could be
Valid
true."
point, sure.
So I was like, "Yeah, I'm keen to do it. Like, let's go." So, and they wanted me to work straight away because they're like, the emails I'd get were like, "Oh, are you available, from August 8th onwards?" And this was July, August.
Yeah.
I'm like, I leave the States on the 8th.
Wow.
It was a couple of weeks, out, it was like a week and a half.
Yeah.
And so they was like, "Can we push it to the next week?" And so, yep. So pretty much as soon as I got back from the States, I was straight into it. And with the 5-week thing, all I was thinking in my mind was, you got 5 weeks. Learn as much as you can. Do good work. Hopefully they'll extend it like a month, or something.
Yeah.
By another month. You try and do good work to try and stay in there. And they had sent me the first script for a scene, my first scene, and they were explaining to me that we know that you're a really good storyteller. You got great artwork and comics and stuff. And obviously, you haven't worked in animation, so storyboards are a little bit different. And I had done some storyboards for a short film, so I kind of had an idea, but not full-on storyboards.
Yeah, sure.
And so they were like, to ease you into it, we want you to do, what they call storybook boards. So it's kind of like you get a chunk of the script, and you kind of illustrate one image to kind of that encompasses that part of the script, rather than continuity, which is like action by action.
I guess the only point of reference I have, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the original Ralph McQuarrie drawings for Star Wars,
I guess kind of
where they have that one image that represents the scene and the tone and everything that's sort of happening.
Kind of like
right.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. So like a storybook. A picture book. So so they wanted me to do that, and I was like, cool. I will try and do that. And as I was drawing the scene, and this is the cool thing about the Disney work environment that I was in, is that they allowed the artists to kind of go where the story takes them.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like you have to draw what's exactly the script. As you're drawing it, you'll find the story comes to life, and you feel like, I need to add this and that.
Yeah.
So they gave me the script, and I was supposed to do storybooks, and I was trying to do storybooks, and as I was doing the script, I ended up drawing more like a mix of both continuity and storybook.
Oh, wow.
Because that's how I was picturing it in my mind as I was drawing it. And I think they didn't realize that, because in their mind, there's like storybook will give him this nice chunky scene, so it's easy.
Yeah.
And it was like the third week of my my 5-week, kind of contract, and I pitched the scene for the first time, and they were like, "Oh, shit!" Like, I think they didn't realize that I did as much work as I did.
Yeah.
Because I can work pretty fast, but also at the same time, I'm very much about line work and stuff as a comic artist.
Yeah.
So like, I can work quick and I can make stuff look way more polished than it really is.
Right.
Because my lines are super clean. So my scene, I did like 135 storyboards for my first scene.
135.
Yep, and there was like, I could see they were like, "Oh shit, he did far more than we expected of him," and they were like, "We gave you a pretty meaty scene," and I think if it was continuity boards they wanted me to do, it wouldn't have been as much. But because it was storybook, so I ended up, because that's how the story unfolded.
Yeah. It's how it came to you in your head, right?
Yeah, and so I had to draw that and put it out there, and then so they gave me a whole bunch of notes on my first pitch. I was like, cool. And what's cool about the way it works is that the story team all watch the people pitch their scenes.
Right, okay.
And then we all give notes. And what's great about that is, for me, story is king. Storytelling is everything.
You're contracted as part of the story team.
Yeah, story team.
So people would watch you, and then you would watch everyone else's pitch as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then we all send the notes, and it's very much, everyone is there it's not about critiquing your work.
Yeah.
It's about what's the best way to tell the story.
Everyone
is like, what's best for the story? Take this out, add this in, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, yes, this is awesome. This is the shit I love. Like, I love telling story.
Yeah.
And if everyone else is trying to tell the best story possible, let's go with it. And so all the notes they gave me, which was actually not that many, I was like, cool, I understand how those work with my scene.
Yep.
So I took those notes and then I put them into my second pitch. And then when I did my second pitch, they were like, holy shit, dude. All the notes we gave you, you elevated. You made them better.
Yeah.
And they were like, cool, let's send that to editorial. I'm like, oh.
Is that it?
I was like, wait, there's no notes? They're like, nah, dude, like, great job.
Oh, shit.
So it got approved on the second pitch. And then a couple of days later, they were like, hey, dude, we really loved your work. We really love your energy and whatnot. You did amazing, with your first scene. So we want to extend your contract.
Brilliant.
And they're cool, to February, I went. So went from 5 weeks to 7 months. And I was like, oh shit, 7 months, but it ended up being 8 months because, but it was just like, I was like, oh shit, I deserve to be here. Like, it was one of those moments where I just and that's the thing, they encourage you to take swings.
Yeah.
And that's all I know how to do is take swings. And I took a swing on that scene, and they were just like, yeah, nah, I think we're gonna be good with this guy. Like, this guy's got it. Like, so, so that was one of those moments where I celebrated a little because I was like, yep, I deserve to be here. I
Does
belong
it
here.
provide you with a sense of validation for all of the years of graft that you did?
Maybe, I guess, in a sense, because working for Disney, all the naysayers, all the organizations that have never given me the time of day.
Yeah.
They're the ones that look like dicks when they're constantly ignoring me.
Yep.
Yeah, Disney, that's a job you can't ignore.
No, God, no.
And even now, I still struggle to kind of be acknowledged by all kinds of especially Pacifica media and organizations. I'm just so I've come to terms with that, and I'm like, I just let my work speak for itself. That's why you find me fairly easily online and stuff, because I've created my own presence, and because I can't rely on anyone else to do it for me.
No.
So I just get, I share my story far and wide through schools.
Yes.
Through podcasts. And people that I know in media, they'll be like, hey, can we talk to you? Yeah, man, that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because I can't rely on the established kind of powers that be.
Okay, let me. So it's a really interesting statement, and I'm going to throw a bit of a curly question at you. So, Samoan boy in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
Tall poppy syndrome is very much a thing here do you think that some of what you go through and the not being able to connect is part of that tall poppy syndrome?
I think, I don't know. I think a lot of it is very much the whole lack of understanding of what I do and how I do it.
Yeah.
Because I've done it outside of the establishment. We talk about gatekeepers and all that stuff, and I'm like, fuck you, gatekeepers.
Yeah.
You can stay in your gated community. I'm out here in the world doing my own shit. Right? And that's kind of how I've always operated outside of, the norm and what is kind of defined as art, and especially Pacifica art. So I've just always been an outlier, and I've created my own network of people. And the tall poppy thing, I don't know if it's tall poppy. I think it's just dumbassery. And to be honest, like, I don't. Like, I've grown up, constantly being on the outside and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, even what I do as a Samoan person is outside the norm.
Yeah.
Like, who thought that you can do this shit as a Samoan person? Because a lot of times, especially with migrant families, there's an expectation to get good jobs, to, make a lot of money, so that, you don't go through the hardships your parents and your grandparents went through. And so what I do is one of those things where they're like, nah, that's not a stable job. That's not a good income, so even within our own communities, it always looked like something that was, a pipe dream.
Yeah.
And so for me, I've never let anyone's opinions of me define who I am. I just do what I love, screw the rest. If you don't like it, good for you. If you like it, awesome. I appreciate any kind of support I get from anyone, but anyone that wants to talk shit, they can keep talking shit, because I'm doing it while they're talking about it, so yeah.
Now, we've obviously had quite a bit of in-depth about your journey through comics and art, and you've obviously kind of reached, I guess, one of the flagship moments working for Disney, and you've had your meetings with DC, you've done some work with Marvel, but you've also worked with WWE as well.
Yeah, so the Marvel work, I haven't done comics for Marvel or DC yet, but I have illustrated trading cards for Marvel.
Yeah.
But the WWE stuff, those comics came about because of Headlocked, the graphic novel series I illustrate, which is about pro wrestling. And funny enough, I met Michael Kingston, the writer-creator of Headlocked, at my first San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, wow.
In like 2011. And
oh, shit.
I just remember walking around seeing wrestling comics.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, dude, I'm an artist and a pro wrestler from New Zealand.
Now, I'm just going to quickly pause on that.
Yep.
Because, yes, this is so... Michel is not only a celebrated graphic novelist, he is also a pro wrestler for Impact Pro Wrestling down in Auckland. And this is kind of the other way that I know you as well. He wrestles under the name Liger, and is currently the IPW Tag Team Champion as part of Short Tempered with Matty Short. So, and we were talking sort of beforehand, you've been doing wrestling for 18 years.
Yeah, almost 18 years.
So the fact that you've done WWE and you were meeting the person that created Headlocked is very, the two are very closely linked, because essentially it's wrestling, it's comics, it's two things you love coming together.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The reason why I love pro wrestling is because of comic books. Because when I was a kid, it didn't have like the plethora of Marvel movies that we do now, and superhero movies. And so, for me as a kid who loved superheroes, pro wrestling was the closest thing to real life superheroes.
Yes, absolutely.
And, you had like the tights and the bulging muscles and stuff.
Yep.
And I was like, good guys, bad guys. And, oh shit, this is like comics. So that's how I fell in love with pro wrestling, because of comics. And my funny enough, my character Liger, half lion, half tiger, full Samoan, started off as a comic book character I created.
No,
and
that's wicked.
And the thing is, when you grow up loving wrestling, you always think to yourself, "I'd be an awesome wrestler." What it'd be like to be a pro wrestler.
You do.
Yeah.
I can put my hand on my heart and say that.
And so I made a comic about what it'd be like if I was a pro wrestler. And Liger was the character.
Oh, shit.
And I tried out at Impact Pro Wrestling because I was like, it would be fun if I could turn this character into a real-life pro wrestler.
Yeah.
And I've never looked back since. And so, people are like, oh, you're going to make another comic of Liger? I said, no, I don't need to.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's like,
I get fucking Liger.
The journey of Liger, I've lived out in the middle of the ring. And so I don't need to tell a story through comics about that. It's become its own, its own thing. And so that's my origin of being a pro wrestler.
Which is amazing. And, essentially you could turn around to people and say, there will be another edition coming out. It happens on the 24th of June. It's the Eliminator. Just come to an event. You'll see Ike continuing his journey. No.
Oh, no, you see, Liger isn't in that story.
So, hang on, I'm going to quickly grab it. So, I've got someone off screen at the moment, former podcast guest, Shane Evans, illustrator, bought this, the Bay of Islands Art Festival 2008 special edition, featuring Lucha Akoko.
Yeah.
And I just shut the bloody page. And I'm actually going to hold it up to my camera so we can see it. So that's
funny enough.
An early iteration, would you say?
No, Liger was before that.
Liger's before this?
Liger's before, at least 4 years before that.
Far out, because 2004.
Yeah, and so, so that was just me kind of doing kind of a slice of life of being a Samoan, but through the eyes of a Samoan luchador family. So, go figure. But so Liger started off as a comic book character. I brought it to life as a pro wrestler, and so I've lived those stories in the middle of the ring. So I don't need to make another comic about them. Maybe if I retire, maybe I'll bust something out. But it's become its own thing. It's become its own monster.
Yeah,
so, and it's another form of storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. And you were sort of I've been into wrestling since 89. Rockers, Heart Foundation. I too also dreamt of being a pro wrestler until a friend of mine, Perry Nean, decided to give me a flying elbow off the top couch and shattered some bone and stuck it into my cartilage, and the doctors can't get it out. So, Perry, wherever you are, you killed a career, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I haven't seen you for years, Perry. Hope you're okay. So, for you, it really seems like story over everything.
Story is king. Story over everything. I tell stories as a comic book artist. I tell stories as a pro wrestler. I tell stories as as an animation story artist. So for me, story is everything. And I use anything and everything at my disposal to tell stories, to tell good stories. And it's about the connection.
Yeah.
The story is how people connect. And so character story when I'm in the ring, that's what I care about.
Yeah.
I'll be beating people up for sure.
Yes.
But there's a story to it.
Of course there is.
It's not senseless beating.
No.
And everything I do in the ring, I'm trying to make sure that the crowd care about everything that happens that I do and whatnot. So it's so where was I? So I met Michael Kingston at San Diego Comic-Con 2011, and he's like, dude, you're pretty awesome, we should work together. And so I was like, yeah, man, that'll be cool. So we swapped details, and we've been working together since 2012.
Wow.
So on Headlocked, and he's like, man, it's so easy to work with you, because he doesn't need to send me reference photos. He'll be like, oh yeah, in the script there's a suplex or some kind of move.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, cool, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, And then sometimes he'll email me and be like, hey, so if the main character is going through training and he's learning this move, how would they be like, oh yeah, this is how I would teach it, and these are certain things that. So, so we've been working together since 2012 officially, and through Headlock's popularity and the growing popularity, with pro wrestlers who are comic book fans, also pro wrestlers who have read our graphic novels, our Headlock comics, and seeing themselves in that, and seeing the authenticity I bring to the wrestling elements through my experience as a wrestler, they're like, oh, these guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
These guys know their shit. So they're more inclined to support us and promote us because they see the love we have for the craft of pro wrestling. Definitely. And so it's crazy to me that, you know, the covers to the Headlocked are illustrated by Jerry the King Lawler. And you know, we've worked with all kinds of wrestlers over the years. Worked with Ric Flair, worked with Mick Foley. I've actually hung out with Ric Flair in New York. And, you know, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Shane Helms, you know. Those guys are, Shane Helms, Christopher Daniels, those are big comic book guys.
Well, he's Hurricane Helms, isn't he?
Yeah. You know, so they were some of the first ones to sign up.
Yeah.
You know, Rob Van Dam, again, a big comic book fan.
Yes.
Samoa Joe is a big comic book fan as well. And whatnot. So it's just been real surreal to see all of these wrestlers I watched, you know, who are big fans of Headlocked and, you know, supporting Headlocked. So yeah, and so through all of that and the wrestlers really advocating for our work, came along the WWE work. Because essentially WWE and Boom Studios, their WWE comics, pretty much stole the Headlocked format and applied it to to their comics.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much the stuff we were doing, which is like about the backstage stuff and how the drama behind the scenes was even greater than what you see in the ring. And so they kind of applied that to the WWE product and comics. And so essentially got to a point where I think maybe some of the wrestlers may have said something, or they just were like, you know, if we're stealing from these guys, we might as well have these guys do the work for us. And so, but Samoa Joe, I guess, was one of the guys that kind of advocated for us, because him being a big comic fan, they asked him to write a story for the comics. And we had worked with Samoa Joe on Headlocked, so his go-tos were Mike and myself.
Wow.
Like, you know, because Mike, he wanted to write with Mike.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to illustrate it. And so, yeah, I remember Boom Studios and going, hey, you know, we were giving you a name, here's the script, you know, draw a couple of pages and we'll see if, you know, you're right for this. And I did the pages and they're like, yep, awesome. Yeah, good to do this.
Nice and easy.
Yep. And it was just surreal to kind of play in that in that toy box, because, you know, WWE characters and, you know, whatnot. I got to draw Samoa Joe choking out Roman Reigns. You know, and that comic, the WWE comics were released in comic book stores all around the world. So, like, just to have my work made available at that level, at that scope, was like, oh shit, that's cool. Yeah. And at the same time, I was like, this is a huge opportunity. You know, I need to do my best work, give it, you know, the best I can. And I was actually traveling. I was in between Brisbane and Sydney, traveling for a couple of conventions when I got the script. Wow. And I actually completed the story within that week.
Traveling between the two?
Wow. So I didn't even work on it back home, because for me I was like, okay, this is a big opportunity. Do it quickly, do it well. Hopefully, you know, they'll ask you to do more. And luckily they did, because after the Samoa Joe story, I ended up doing a John Cena versus The Miz from WrestleMania 27 story.
Oh wow.
And again, they loved that. Like, WWE and Boom Studios loved that John Cena story, which funny enough is a Miz story, but John Cena's in it. And they loved it so much they reprinted it as a mini comic and gave away thousands and thousands of copies of it at Walmart stores all around America. So wow. So I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. Again, seeing where my work was being distributed and whatnot. And, like, you know, I've also done a story, you know, featuring Stone Cold. You know, got to draw Stone Cold Steve Austin, and my favorite one that I worked on was a Bret Hart story. So,
sorry everyone, Bret Hart and Stone Cold are my two favorite wrestlers of all time.
Yeah, I got to do a Bret Hart story, and it was kind of like a retrospective of his career, but like it's when he's about to have his first WWF match, and like Jimmy Hart's talking to him, like hyping him up by telling him about like all the stuff he's going to accomplish, but then actually like using what he has accomplished as those markers of what Jimmy Hart is telling him he's going to accomplish. And so I got to draw, and I did a lot of research. I got to draw Bret Hart in his first kind of tights.
Yep.
That he wore in WWE, and then all his other tights through those moments that I got to illustrate. And at the same time, I got to draw a whole bunch of wrestlers I grew up watching. So, in that story, not only did I get to draw Bret, I got to draw Jimmy Hart, I got to draw Jake the Snake, Macho Man, Big John Studd, Undertaker, British Bulldog, Shawn Michaels, Ultimate Warrior, Ted DiBiase, Ric Flair and stuff. Mr. Perfect, I got to draw
Mr. Perfect.
I was so glad I got to draw the Mr. Perfect sharpshooter. The sharpshooter he puts on Mr. Perfect.
I remember that match.
And stuff like that. And then it culminates with the last shot of Bret Hart versus Ric Flair when he wins the title.
Oh yes. So
it's like he's about to walk out into the match.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what's even cooler about that Bret Hart story is that I have a comic at home, the Bret Hart comic at home, and that's signed by Bret Hart and Jimmy Hart. And I got their seal of approval. And the thing, because I worked with Mike on that too. Mike wrote that story. And I illustrated. So the team headlock did that story.
God.
And Jimmy and Bret were saying to Mike, they were like, dude, you got our voices bang on. Like,
wow.
The way they talk and what they would have said in those situations, they were like, yeah, this is, but again, it's their authenticity and also that love for wrestling that we both have, Mike and I, that has really earned the trust of wrestlers all around the world, big and small, so.
Oh, that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Wow. So, obviously, you've got the Disney work coming up that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've got coming up that you can sort of speak about or allude to? Or are you like NDA'd through the arsehole at this point?
Yeah. It's funny too. I think there's the whole like, one of those memes where like artists and, their favorite, their favorite artworks from like 2022, like last year.
Yeah.
And I was like a photo of me and then like NDA icons all around me. It's like, hey, here's all of my favorite artwork from this year.
Yeah.
NDA. But no, I again, like I tell the kids too, it's like I do so much that I forget about some of the stuff I'm doing, some of the stuff I've done. And so, as well as the Disney work, for the last couple of years, and it looks like for the next 3 or 4 years, coming up, I've been working on a video game project with a AAA gaming studio. So again,
is it a wrestling game?
No, it's not a wrestling game. Though I wouldn't mind doing one, but
AEW, man.
Actually, when that comes out later on this month,
that's this year. So excited for it.
I wouldn't mind giving it a go, but so that's something else that I'll have on my CV as well.
Gaming studio, wow.
It's a big name gaming studio. That's the thing. Like, people have heard of these people, and they've made some very popular games. But I've been working with them for the last couple of years, and we just had a meeting last week, and they had the timeline. And it looks like maybe 2026.
Wow.
They're looking to release it. So, we're getting into the kind of pre-production stuff now. Now that
amazing.
And hopefully it gets approved for further development. So, that's, again, I can't talk about that too much or give too many details. But, comics have taken me to animation and video games.
Brilliant.
So it's
like it's like a tangential journey, really, isn't it?
And it all comes down to like now that like I'm older and I'm more experienced, it all comes down to story. That's my love for telling stories has allowed me to navigate all of these different spaces, because they're like, this dude, his story, his story stuff is like crazy. Like even the Disney guys were like, man, your story of mind is so good. Like you really know how to tell stories, and I'm like, man, that means a lot to me, because like these guys took a gamble on me. They took a gamble on me because they told me Disney do not make a habit of hiring people without animation experience, which is fair enough. But they also said because they were trying to get me from the beginning of the project, and constantly getting said no. When I showed up in America, they were like, we need to pull the trigger now. He's in the country.
Yes.
This is our last opportunity to get him. And so me just flying myself over with nothing in the bag is what,
Well, that's paid for itself tenfold, 100-fold.
Yeah, and the skills I kind of acquired over the last 8 months working as a story artist. The guys were like, dude, you can work anywhere now. You've got the skills to work at Sony, Illumination, and DreamWorks and stuff. Like whether I'll be able to get in is no story, but they were like, yeah, dude, you've got that. You've got it. So like again, for me, because those guys took a chance on me, I just remember thinking I also need to make sure that they made the right call. And I wrapped up as a story artist at the end of March, and we're doing our farewell meetings because the story artists kind of work up to a certain point, and then once the story is like finessed and pretty much ready to go, like the story team whittles down, and then it goes into pre-production, animation and stuff. So I only worked for a certain part of the process, and so as we're wrapping up, we had a few other meetings, farewell meetings and whatnot, and they were like, hey, we really loved your work, we really loved your energy, you've been such a great kind of asset to our team.
Nice.
And so we were thinking maybe you can continue to be part of the team but in a different capacity. So my current role for Disney Animation Studios is a cultural consultant.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so I'm still working for Disney, but just in a more kind of like casual basis,
sure,
on call basis, but they
consultants rates.
So they obviously loved me being in that space, which is crazy to me. So like, okay, I made the difference.
You've had impact.
Yeah, exactly. So
no pun intended.
Yeah, so that's kind of like life at the moment.
Okay, so one final question from me. For anyone that's watching or listening at the moment, if you were to offer one piece of advice for people that are up and coming with their story, illustration, comic work, or if people are at a certain level and need to know how to get to the next level, what would be the one piece of advice you would give them?
Oh, yeah, easy. My personal mantra for success. In order to succeed, you only have to do two things. Okay. Do the work and don't be a dick. That's it. Seems
simple.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't take the second part into consideration.
Unfortunately not.
But that's it. That's all. There's no shortcuts. There's no magic tricks. You just got to do the work and not be a dick. So yeah, that's my advice for any aspiring artists out there.
Michel, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with us. I really do appreciate it, but probably more than you'll know. Thank you very much for joining us on the Northland Artists Conversation. It's been an absolute blast. We always learn so much from every guest that comes in, so to talk with someone that's at an international level is supremely cool. So again, thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me. So yeah, appreciate it.
Very cool.
Cheers.
Well, there we go, everyone. Michel Mulipola. I told you right from the start that this would be an amazing podcast. Such a good episode. He was super cool. Because of the nature of his work, he there was some shit he couldn't discuss because he is under contract and he signed NDA agreements, and as he said, a lot of the work he does is all NDA based, which, if you don't know what NDA stands for, it stands for non-disclosure agreement, which means he can't talk about a particular project that he's working on until that project is released. So it very, very cool to interview someone that kind of plays at that level. We've had some amazing artists that have been that have done the international thing. Ryan Berry comes to mind when he was with his band Minwee. Ryan being an electronic musician and producer, toured the world. Great podcast. You should definitely have a look at it. But Michel was just, talks about going to Comic-Con and just calling up a mate saying, hey, I'm in town. And they're like, great, we want to meet you right now. And then going there and then having that conversation where they're like, yeah, sweet, we've been wanting to work with you for a little while now. How can we make that happen? just unreal. It's and as he said right at the end, it's just story and graft. Keep on, grinding, grafting, improving, getting better, and make sure everything you do when it comes to comic books is all about story. Big thing for him. So I'm going to switch to my camera again. Amazing podcast and such a cool dude. He's also a wrestler as well. He wrestles for IPW down in Auckland, Impact Pro Wrestling, and he's been doing that for, what did he say, like 18 years? And he's known as the character Liger. And, my son and I, we are very, very big wrestling fans. We've gone to the last 4 shows by the time this podcast comes out. Might have been to the 5th show. 5th show might be coming up. I don't know. But, he was so cool. If you're checking us out on Facebook or Instagram, there will be some photos of him wearing the Liger mask with the IPW belt, and some of him as he is. He's just... Yeah, dude's a legend. So cool. Just and a genuinely nice guy. So, Michel, thank you so much for taking time for us. And we had to make it a little bit later as well because he went to see the Spider-Man film, the new one, Across the Multiverse, which, by all accounts, was amazing. Hopefully, by the time this podcast comes out, I'll have gone to see it as well. So I tell you what, where can you find this amazing podcast and these very cool photos? Well, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all Northland Artists Conversation. We are on audio as well, so you can go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Again, Northland Artists Conversation. And if you are an artist, someone that has any type of creative expression, or if you know someone that has any type of creative expression, please get in touch with us. There are so many talented people in Northland, and we've only just scratched the tip of the iceberg. We'd love to get more on. Feel free to contact us. hello@northlandartistsconversation.co.nz is our email. We'd love to hear from you. We really would. We've also got a Patreon page as well. That's where if you're a fan of the podcast, you can support us. All patrons are welcome. We're going to go through and we're going to figure that out, do a little bit of rebranding, give it a wee zhuzh, tidy it up a little bit. But we have 2 tiers at the moment, so I'll explain them both. First tier we have is called Cup of Coffee. That's $5 a month, and that's just a way of saying, yeah, very cool. We support what you guys are doing. It's pretty awesome. Second tier we have is called Coffee Addict. It's $20 a month, but that gets you a few extras. You'll find out who's coming up on the podcast in terms of being a guest. If you want to ask our guest a question, you simply log in through the portal and go that way. And you also get a bit of a shout out, which I'm going to do very, very soon. Where can you find us? There's 2 ways. You can go to Google, Patreon, that's Patreon, top right-hand corner. Go to Northland Artists Conversation, create an account, log in, pick your tier. Super simple. Second way is to go www.patreon.com/Northland Artists Conversation. Sign up, pick your tier, go from there. Super simple. Quick shout out to our patrons as well. As I said, we're going to shout out to Lauren Roach, the original first Patreon. Thank you so much. Can't wait for that second book. Can't wait for that second book. We're going to get you back in the chair when that happens. Second one is Michael Boda, who is currently doing some fundraising for his next anthology of short stories. We're going to get Mike back in when that comes around. That'll be very, very cool. And third one is Maggie Coco, the wonderfully charming Maggie Coco. Her podcast is very, very interesting. You should have a listen, and find out her first experiences of coming to Whangarei. Outstanding. I'm going to switch to my wide camera. Thank you very much, guys. I'll go to my camera now. So it's been crazy. A year with Northland Artists Conversation. Hard to believe it's been exactly 1 year since we started this endeavour. So I'm going to give a big shout out to producer Andrew, editor Rocky, communications manager Marino. My name is Mark Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us or sticking around and continuing to support us. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much for checking out the Northland Artists Conversation, and we will see you guys real soon.